UFC fight now, Sean Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez is just around the corner, and I'm here to give you guys my predictions for every single fight on this card. Starting off with actually a good fight. This is genuinely a good fight. I'm not even joking. You know, Carly Judice, you know, she's actually a very good boxer. She has very crisp combinations. She has excellent feints, really good footwork. You know, she has decent defensive wrestling, strong teep kicks to the body, really good knees to the body, and straight up the middle. I mean, she really does have it all. And, you know, compared to Miller, you know, mediocre striking, you know, she mainly uses her striking to set up the takedowns, but her striking is absolutely like horrible. And I'm not even exaggerating on that. And, you know, she will need defense to take you down. She can't just take you down in open mat. It can be easily countered, and with the performances and the master class, you know, Judice had on defeat against Nicole Cagliari, and she showed levels on defeat against Eunice Dubin. She also had she did lose to Gabriel Fernandez, but it was like a split decision, I'm pretty sure, and it was very, very close. But look, man, this fight, I think Judice is gonna have Miller on the back foot the entire fight. The striking gap is really not even close. It genuinely is not even close, and Judice, you know, takedown defense should be enough to keep. It just should be enough to stuff pretty much every single takedown attempt Juliana Miller is gonna throw at her. And even if he does, you know, get to the ground, I don't think Miller's gonna be able to hold Judice for that long. Also, Miller, you know, she hasn't really been that active because of the severe shoulder injury she had that kept her out all of 2024. She only fought once in 2025 against Viana Petrovic, and she really didn't even look that good. Yes, it was because of the ring rust and all that, but still, this is the prediction. Judice by first round TKO. Or I don't think she's gonna go to sleep with one punch. I could see her like toppling down with a knockdown and then getting like TKO on the ground. But this could also go 29-28 decision because this is a WMMA fight. But I'm expecting a knockout by Judice on this one. I'm not gonna lie to you. Anyways, moving on to Jordan Leavitt versus Jadir Delija. As you guys know, Jadir Delija, decent grappling, or not even decent. He actually has good grappling, you know, very good takedown defense, decent striking. You know, he's obviously a very, very serious submission threat. And I'm not even going to beat around the bush for this fight. I think Jordan Leavitt is just a stepping stone for prospects at this point. You know, Patty Pimlet, Chase Hooper, and now Delija. You know, Leavitt has, you know, okay offensive grappling and wrestling, but Delija just going to overpower him like Delvaja's been doing to every single opponent at this point. I think I'm gonna pick Delija by round 2 guillotine. It could be a rear naked choke. It's gonna be a submission. All I know is gonna be a submission. I am gonna pick the guillotine, but it could be a rear naked choke. I don't know. I did say round 2. Anyways, moving on. Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani versus Phil Rowe. Look, these two fighters, you know, I think they're very even in the striking department. You know, Lebosnoyani, you know, very good low kicks. This is obviously his UFC about, you know, very good submission threat. But he's like an interesting fighter because he doesn't really shoot for takedowns, and the submission he has on his record, like the submission wins he has on his record, like they come from like pure chaos. It's not like he's really looking. It's like, you know how like Fluffy gets the submissions. It's like that. It's like, well, Fluffy does go for like guillotines and all that, but you know what, like his last fight, Anthony Hernandez's last fight where he got that rear naked choke out of a weird ass position, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, he gets these submissions out of weird positions. He's not really looking for them like that. You know, Phil Rowe, obviously, on the other hand, you know, he has way more experience than Lebosnoyani, but his takedown defense is not really that good. And I think this is actually a very hard fight to predict, in my opinion, because I think this stays on the feet, right? So I think the striking is close, man. And I think Phil Rowe has faced better competition. But that being said, I think the low kicks that Lebosnoyani has on his arsenal are going to be massive. And I think those are going to be the difference for this fight. So that's why I'm picking Lebosnoyani by decision. I think the low kicks are just gonna bring him over the hump. While they have even striking match, the low kicks is just gonna slow down Phil Rowe even more than Paul is gonna be at the end of the the last 2 and 3 rounds. Whatever. I think Jean Paul's low kicks are gonna be massive to slowing down Phil Rowe on this fight. Moving on, Ramiz Brahimaj, I think I pronounced that perfectly, versus Punahel Soriano. As you guys know, Soriano is a very, very explosive striker, and he's actually been using his wrestling lately, guys. They're both on a 3-fight win streak. Brahimaj, obviously a decent striker, and he's still improving with his striking, and he's always looking for submissions, which is absolutely amazing. Great grappler, a good defensive wrestling. He's obviously also on a 3-fight win streak, like I said. He lost to Themba Gorimbo. That's a big asterisk in my part. Like, every time I see Themba Gorimbo and he has a win over you, bro, like, it's like I can't get over it, you know what I mean? But look, both guys have really been improving on their last 3 fights, like, really. And the question is, whose improvements is going to matter most for this matchup? And I think Soriano tends to leave his neck exposed in clinches and takedown entries as of recently, when he's obviously been improving his takedowns, but he's also been leaving his neck exposed. So, and people have gotten close, and I think Brahimaj is going to capitalize on that. And I'm gonna pick Brahimaj by guillotine submission. I know I picked another fight by guillotine, but this could be the guillotine card or some shit. But I really think Brahimaj is gonna get him by guillotine submission. I don't know what round, I just know it's going to be a guillotine submission, buddy. Okay, moving on to a fight that I'm not really going to say much. I'm going to pick 29-28 Leon Edwards' sister. Enough said. There you go. Look, Alden Coria versus Luis Gurule. But look, man, Coria is a very good striker, and fun fact, he's the primary training partner for Joshua Van, if you didn't know, brother. So if he's the main training partner, the primary training partner, obviously he's gonna have good feints, he's gonna be very fast. I mean, this is flyweight, everyone's fast. Obviously he's gonna have good striking defense, excellent counters, and he has very good low kicks. He's very patient. I love the way he picks his shots. He's a good wrestler, a good grappler, and I think Luis Gurule is clearly a stepping stone for Coria on this fight. He stands no chance on defeat, in my opinion, and he's gonna have to rely on his wrestling for this fight, because he's not going to do anything to Coria on defeat. Coria's wrestling defense should be good enough to survive, and if it does end up on the ground, he will get back up. And the question for me for this fight is, which round is the finish going to happen? So I'm going to be picking Coria by round 2 KO/TKO. This fight is going to go similar to the Ode Osborne fight that ended in round 2 for Gurule. Anyways, moving on to Ode Osborne, as we just got done speaking about him, against Alibi Idiris, I think it is. But look, man, this fight, do they show the odds in here? Well, there's no odds. Yeah, there's no odds. But look, man, Idiris lost his first fight, but he showed solid defense, and I feel like he showed dynamic striking, spinning attacks, confident movement. And the fight he had against Morales, he fought a perfect fight. Like, he couldn't have fought that better, in my opinion. I think the odds were like a -1,000 for Idiris, I think it was. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it was like some crazy stuff, and he ended up losing that fight. But seriously, bro, Joseph Morales fought that fight perfectly, and Alibi Idiris didn't even look that bad. He just was not as good as Morales that night, and Morales literally looked perfect. Literally, like he couldn't have gone way more perfect than it did for Joseph Morales, and that's why I'm gonna be picking Idiris by decision on this fight. I think he's more technical. He's gonna play it safe, and he's just gonna get his first win in the UFC against Ode Osborne and Marauder. But yeah, that's gonna be my. Let's move on. Jesus Christ. TD Njokuani versus Carlos Leal. Look, man, look. I'm going to be picking Leal by round 1 TKO. You know, Njokuani, I don't like how he's like very planted on the feet, you know, when striking. I think Leal will just push him backwards immediately, you know, having him the back foot on this fight. It's going to be a lot of clinch work on this fight. You know, Njokuani has good knees, but Leal's pressure and hooks, I think, is going to end this fight. I'm gonna go Carlos Leal by knockout in the first round. Obviously, I just said that one. Obviously, and not knockout, but a TKO. Not what the fuck am I saying? First round TKO by Leal. Jesus Christ! Why can't I speak right now? Jesus freaking Christ! Now to the, is this the main card? Wait, what? Yeah, the main card. Jesus Christ, that was fast. All right. Time is flying. Holy shit. Anyway, Reese versus Michael Pereira. My god. Look, is it just me, or like Michael Pereira, to me, every time Michael Pereira, it's like Michael Pereira feels like an old fighter to me. Like imagine like a fighter that takes like PEDs but doesn't get the enhancements of PEDs. It just gets like the old age of it. And that's why I feel what Michael Pereira looks like, or what I feel when he's about to fight. You know what I mean? You know, Reese, you know, he's obviously on a sneaky little 2-fight win streak. I think he is. I think he's in a 2-fight win streak. I hope he is. I hope I'm not wrong about that. You know, he's. I think he's gonna have a wrestling heavy game plan for this fight. You know, Pereira, man. He's going to be able to get up, obviously, but I don't think that gas tank is going to be able to hold up. I think the Abus Nurmagomedov fight is just wow. How can you get outgassed by Abus Nurmagomedov, brother? That fight showed me that I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think Michael Pereira is going to get cut, win or lose this fight. I'm not even kidding, because he's not even exciting anymore. You know, he had the factor that, oh man, he's coming in here, anything can happen, but that's just not gonna happen anymore, guys, unfortunately. I think that mystique has already faded away. I think he might even get cut after this fight. I'm going by Reese by crafty decision. Oh man. Jacoby Smith versus Josiah Harrell. And this is, I feel bad for Harrell. I really do. You know, he had a brain disease surgery, and he had his fight canceled against JDM. And think about that, his first fight for the UFC was JDM, right? And he had to cancel that because he had, you know, had to do brain surgery because of a brain disease. And now on short notice, I think this is like a less than a week short, I think it's like 4 or 5 days short notice, I don't know the days exactly. He has to fight Jacoby freaking Smith, another good prospect, bro. Like, I just feel bad for this guy. First they get him JDM, and now they're giving him Jacoby Smith, and on short notice too. Look, I'm gonna go with Smith. You know, the cardio, the wrestling, the ground and pound are pretty legit. I think Harrell's speed is solid, but on short notice, I was already, even if it wasn't on short notice, I was going to pick Smith. But now, because if it's short notice, it like validates my pick even more. Like, this fight is not going to be close. I am picking Smith by decision. I think he's gonna, you know, how do I even say this? He's going to manage his gas tank more, because his fight against Nico Price in his last fight, he kind of gassed out a little bit. So I think he's gonna like try to play around with his gas tank to see how he's going to manage it from now on, because he looked kind of gassed in the Nico Price fight. So I think he's gonna play around with his gas tank and, you know, see what his peak is or how he needs to manage it every round. So I think this is gonna go a crafty decision by Jacoby Smith, but a comfortable one. It's not gonna be like a war or anything like that. He's not gonna be in trouble. It's gonna be a comfortable unanimous decision. Moving on to Sergey Spivac versus Ante Delija. You know, Ante Delija obviously has a massive advantage on the feet. The striking is not even close. I am picking Ante Delija by decision. The KO is very obviously possible, but I think Delija is gonna play it safe because of the knockout loss against his father, Waldo Cortez Acosta. Let's go, dude. He's gonna be the future champ. Let's fucking go, dude. Waldo Cortez Acosta. But look, Spivac has nothing striking wise. You know, Ante Delija is not gonna have no threats. He's gonna have no threat against Spivac on the feet. But I still think he's gonna play it safe because of the knockout, man. You know, he's still gonna have those jitters. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm gonna go Delija by decision, but it could happen. It could be a late TKO, but I'm still gonna stick by Delija by decision. Moving on to Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa. What a name, brother. What a name. People forget, man. Dan Ige took a 3-hour notice fight against Diego Lopez and went the distance. People forget, man. People forget. But look, obviously experience favors Ige, you know. But I think Costa is just, you know, he's just a better fighter overall, you know. Dan Ige, you know, he didn't even look bad in his last fight against Pitbull, man. He really didn't. But I just think at this point of their careers, Costa is just a better fighter overall. You know, he's faster, longer, more active, you know, in fights. The kicks are going to be so good for Costa on this fight. This is the size advantage. It's just everything is going to be against Dan Ige in this fight. He's just a worse fighter than Costa, in my opinion. And if this fight does end up on the ground, I don't think Costa is going to be able to, you know, finish him, but I think he's going to be able to rack up control time, go for a lot of submission attempts on the feet. You know, I think Costa is going to be more active. I don't think he's going to be able to like knock out Dan Ige or anything, but he's definitely going to be way better than Ige on the feet. But Ige obviously has fought literally the best of this division. You know, the best. So that's why I don't think he's going to be getting knocked out or anything by Costa, but he's definitely gonna get, you know, like outstruck, outpointed. It's just Costa's just a way better fighter right now at this point of their careers, in my opinion. Costa by 29-28 decision. Moving on. Oh man, this is a good fight, guys. This is a very, very good fight. Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic. You know, I think this fight has the potential to be like fight of the night, performance of the night, everything, every single bonus that you can think of. This is probably going to be it right here. I think Neal is obviously the cleaner, more complete striker, in my opinion. Medic is like more explosive, but not as fluid as Neal. And the thing is, it really could go either way, because Neal could catch Medic, but Medic could also catch Neal. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna bank on that, because obviously Neal was standing. He was standing there with Carlos Prates, and when I saw what Carlos Prates did to Leon Edwards, Neal standing in front of Carlos Prates like that is so freaking impressive in hindsight. And the experience he has over Medic it's absolutely insane. Obviously, Neal, you know, his last 3 losses were against Ian, Shafka, and Carlos Prates. So like absolute freaking demons. So he's only fought the best of the best, or his only losses were literally his last 3 losses, I should say, were only against the best of the best. And that's why I'm gonna go Neal by decision. You know, I was going to pick Neal by knockout, dude, but I just have for some reason I just have a feeling they're just gonna, it's gonna be like a dog fight. but no one's gonna get knocked out. You know, there's gonna be a lot of significant strikes. These two are just gonna be battered for some. That's what I just feel. A lot of people, I think they're picking, you know, by knockout. I don't know, like by knockout Neal or by knockout Medic, but I really think this fight goes to a decision. Am I crazy? Am I crazy to think that? But I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go Neal by decision. Moving on to the main event of the evening. Before I predict this, make sure you guys leave a like, hit that sub button, man, and comment down below what you think is going to happen on this fight. Also, I did a video alone on this fight, so make sure you check that out after this. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time breaking this down because I made a whole video alone about this. But look, I personally think Fluffy is a stylistic nightmare for Sean Strickland. I just have to say it again, okay? Stylistic nightmare. You know, Sean obviously might have the edge on the feet, but I think Fluffy's wrestling pressure is gonna open up so many things on the feet for him, man, that Sean Strickland's striking edge is not really gonna be that much on this fight. I don't know if I'm crazy to say, it just makes sense, dude. It really does make sense. I think Sean Strickland is going to get taken down a bunch of times, and he's going to get up a bunch of times. But if you told me that, if you told me that this fight is going to be that him getting back up, defending a lot of takedowns, you know, and then him beating Fluffy on the feet for 5 rounds, that's just not gonna happen. Sean Strickland is not going to beat Fluffy in a 5-round fight with just his striking. He's not going to do that. He's just not going to do that. I don't know how people think that's really going to happen. Fluffy's pressure is going to get to Sean Strickland. It just simply is. Fluffy, I said in my video that he's arguably the best tank in this division. I'm just gonna say it right now. I rewatched this fight again and in a bunch of his other fights. Why did I say this fight like it already happened? I'm fucking retarded. I watched all of his past fights. I think he has the best gas tank in this division. I think Fluffy's gas tank is going to get to Sean Strickland, and we could see Sean Strickland gas before round 4, in my opinion. Am I crazy for saying that? Am I really crazy for saying that? I can't be that crazy, right? Sean Strickland's opponents haven't really came in there with like a wrestling heavy game plan. I said it in the video that I made, you know, in the last 5 years, I think his opponents have thrown like 20 something takedown attempts, while Fluffy had like 29 takedown attempts on like Michael Pereira alone. You know what I mean? There's levels to this, man. We saw what Kamaru Usman did to Sean Strickland, man. Absolutely mauled him. I think he only got like 2 takedowns in that fight, if I'm correct. And he absolutely destroyed him when he got them down. I know Sean Strickland is going to be able to get up from Fluffy's takedowns because he's not the type to just keep you down there. But him doing that every single round is going to make him tired, in my opinion. He's going to experience a new level of pressure. He has never fought a fighter like Anthony Hernandez, ever. Never. And that's just the reality of it, in my opinion. I'm predicting Hernandez by decision, but I really wouldn't be shocked if it's a round 4 or 5 TKO, man. I don't see him getting submitted, but I definitely see him getting like TKO'd or something, gets caught by something, you know what I mean? One of those punches that, you know, Hernandez throws to initiate the takedown. But look, man, I'm gonna go Anthony Hernandez by decision. Let me know down what you think in the comment section. How do you think the main event goes? Because I'm pretty confident in Fluffy. Like, I'm really confident on this fight. With that being said, I'll see you guys very soon. Goodbye.